The broadcast cut across every known channel in the galaxy, overriding entertainment streams, military frequencies, and even pirate radio outposts. It began with the insignia of the Galactic Empire, a cold, angular crest suspended in a sterile field of black, before fading to a sterile, steel-gray room. In the center knelt a man in standard-issue Earth Navy SEAL fatigues. His wrists were bound, but his posture remained upright, defiant. Lieutenant Mason Reyes. 23 confirmed ops, one too many victories against the Empire, and now the star of their cautionary tale. A pall of silence hung over the galaxy. On a forward base orbiting Europa, Captain Nia Carter stood frozen in the command center, fists clenched behind her back. Her jaw tightened with every beat of the Imperial anthem that played softly beneath the broadcast. "He's smiling," whispered Amara Jane, the team xenolinguist, leaning forward on her console, her wide, thoughtful eyes studied Reyes as if trying to read subtext from every twitch of his expression. Reyes was smiling. "Bet you 10 creds he says something stupid," muttered Des Boom Wallace, sprawled upside down in his chair with a half-disassembled plasma charge in his lap. His boots were off. He never wore them during briefings. Dude loved drama. "I'm not taking that bet," said Ilya Petrov, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the screen. The Russian engineer had already opened a side terminal, fingers dancing across the keyboard. "I'm already writing the retaliation virus." On screen, a towering Xeric official, all plated scales and ceremonial armor, addressed the galaxy. "This is the fate of those who challenge imperial order. Let this human's demise stand as testament to our patience and its limits." Reyes looked up at the camera. His face was bloodied, one eye swollen, and yet his grin was almost amused. "To whoever's watching this," he rasped, voice rough but steady, "tell Nia she still owes me a drink." Nia exhaled sharply. Around her, the ops team stiffened. "And to the Galactic Empire," Reyes continued, "just so we're clear, this isn't a warning shot. It's a countdown." The Xeric commander snarled something in his native tongue. A sword, sleek, humming, came down in a precise arc. The screen went black. Silence again. Thick, suffocating. Then Nia turned. "Prep the Phantom," she said. "We move in 20. Ilya blinked. 20 minutes? "No," Nia replied. 20 minutes ago, the moment they started the stream. Des hooped and kicked himself upright. "Oh, now we're talking. Sweet revenge mission, anyone?" Amara swallowed hard. "Do we even have clearance? Do we care?" Nia snapped, grabbing her gear from the locker and strapping on a sidearm. Reyes was the message. With a reply, the team scattered into motion. The Phantom wasn't built for subtlety. It was built for denial, as in deniable operations. Sleek, black, and tricked out with more off-book tech than Earth Command would publicly admit existed. It now hummed with kinetic urgency as the team boarded. Amara strapped him beside Nia. "You think they'll expect retaliation this fast?" "No," Nia replied, buckling her harness. "They think we'll go through channels. Council votes. Condemnation speeches. Maybe a strongly worded memo. But instead," Des said from the rear, chewing on a protein bar, "they get us." "For humans in a retrofitted coffin?" Ilya asked dryly. 5, Amara corrected, quietly. "Mason's still with us." The words hung in the air for a beat. Then the Phantom launched, slamming through Europa's exosphere like a bullet through glass. 10 minutes later, they breached Imperial comms. The virus Ilya wrote was small, elegant, and angry. It didn't shout or crash systems. It whispered, poking holes in secure channels and whispering Earth idioms into elite comms. Loose lip-sync ships. "The humans are coming. Start running." Meanwhile, Amara activated a passive signal to the Varathi diplomatic network, embedding Rhea's final words and face into an ancient Varathi prophecy algorithm. Within seconds, thousands of Varathi clerics began debating whether the execution fulfilled the legend of the laughing warrior who breaks chains. They hadn't fired a single shot, but the ripples had started. Back on the Phantom, Des was loading up explosives and naming each one. "This is Little Mason," he said, cradling a high-density plasma core. And this one's called regret. She's for their fuel lines. I worry for your psychological well-being, Ilya muttered. You say that like it's a new concern. Naya stood in the cockpit, watching the Imperial system grow closer through the forward viewport. Her face was unreadable. She remembered Reyes in training. How he always volunteered for the worst jobs. How he'd talk during recon flights just to keep the team grounded. How he laughed during their near-death op on Tau 9, even while covered in acid. He hadn't died afraid. He dared the Empire to blink. Naya didn't blink either. They docked at a neutral satellite station, orbiting a major Imperial relay hub. It was technically off-limits, but Dez had bribed the dockmaster with an Earth guitar and a custom playlist of 1980 synth-pop. The alien had wept. They moved like shadows through corridors. We hit their relay center, Naya instructed. Amara, distract security. Ilya, plant the loop. Dez, blow stuff up. Naya paused. No, not yet. They were 4 humans in a vast empire of hundreds of species. Outgunned, outnumbered, but never outmatched. An hour later, as a dozen Imperial warships lost navigational sync and began slowly drifting into one another, broadcasted live across their own networks. The Empire tried to understand what was happening. They traced it back to the execution feed. The timestamp read, 20 minutes after Rhea's death. It was, in effect, the exact moment their empire began to collapse. The Empire expected armies. Instead, they got chaos wrapped in ingenuity, delivered with a grin. The Phantom slipped to the fringes of Imperial territory, masked by Ilya's ghost net. A digital skin made of decaying protocol signals that mimicked a garbage hauler. The Empire never checked garbage. That was their first mistake. Inside, the team floated weightlessly in the dim red interior as the ship skimmed low orbit over Carvas Prime, the central relay node for Imperial communications in this quadrant. One massive satellite city. No civilians. All signal traffic. The Empire still thinks in straight lines, Naya said, watching the blueprint projected across the console. Centralized systems. Predictable routing. No contingency for a virus that steals behavioral patterns. They're an empire of logic, Amara murmured, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. But humans were jazz. Messy jazz, Dez added, the kind that throws a trumpet into the crowd and sets the piano on fire. Naya raised an eyebrow. Ilya? Already done. He hit a key. I've injected our signal leeches into their comm trunk. Within minutes, every message will be replicated, inverted, and rerouted through Earthsat ciphers. We'll see everything. They'll see nothing. Do they get rickrolled again? Dez asked. No. Worse. Ilya cracked a rare grin. They get insurance hold music. On loop. Dez winced. You're a monster. They touched down in a decommissioned mining hangar on Carvas Prime, right under the nose of the Empire's most heavily guarded signal center. No alarms, Naya noted as they stepped into the stale, humming corridor. Either they're arrogant or dead asleep. Either way, Dez said, hoisting his duffel of shaped charges, they're about to have a very loud morning. Inside the relay core, things were different, bright, pulsing, precise. Lines of Zarek and Krethi technicians moved like ants through the space, unaware that a 4-person kill team in repurposed janitorial uniforms had just breached their sanctum. Amara slipped in among the aliens, her posture mimicking the subtle shoulder dips of Krethi subordinates. She wore an expression of mild annoyance and bureaucratic urgency. She approached the Zarek supervisor and said, in flawless ceremonial dialect, Unit 47 needs recalibration. Channel flux is skewing below Imperial tolerances. Third shift will be demoted unless corrected. The supervisor blinked all 6 eyes and nodded, immediately diverting a team to the opposite wing. Humans lie like an art form, Amara whispered into comms. Because it is, Dez replied, planning his first charge inside a vent behind the main relay node. Naya and Ilya ducked into the core maintenance panel. Within seconds, Ilya had cracked the access port. Once I plug in the viral sprinter, it'll copy itself through every network branch, he said. But it only runs once. After that, it burns itself out, Then we time it right, Naya said. On your mark. The virus, codenamed Tagline, wasn't designed to destroy. It was worse. It distracted. Every ship, every drone, every admin terminal in the Empire's upper half would receive ghost orders. Plausible but incorrect. Turn here. Deploy there. Scan nothing. Then, at random intervals, HFY would trigger minor but noticeable failures, air recirculation pauses, phantom diagnostics, and fake mutiny alerts. The Empire prided itself on order. HFY was smothered in noise. Des was planning his final charge beneath a coolant pipe when a Kreti patrol turned the corner. "A team?" he muttered, hand slipping to sidearm. "We've got a situation." "Non-lethal if you can," Naya said. "I'm offended you'd think otherwise." 3 seconds later, Des emerged from the corridor wearing one Kreti helmet and dragging 2 unconscious aliens into a broom closet. "I said if you can," Naya muttered as he strolled past. "They're not dead, just dreaming of sheep or whatever their species counts." Ilya hit the final keystroke. Daisy Kane's live. Back aboard the Phantom, the team watched it unfold. On the galactic map, Imperial fleet formations began to warp like melted clockwork. Task groups jumped to false coordinates. Supply drops went missing. One fleet orbited a gas giant for 3 hours because its logs insisted there was a rebellion on the surface. The planet was uninhabitable. "This is beautiful," Amara breathed. Naya was already looking at the next objective. "We're not finished. We've disrupted. Now we fracture." Their next stop was the Zilani Cultural Consulate, located on a neutral station. The Zilani were high-ranking Empire allies. Hyper-strict, unyielding, deeply ceremonial. Amara walked into their central chamber carrying an artifact, a charred data disk, and calmly declared to be a prophecy relic fulfilling a key passage in the Zilani origin poem. "What are you doing?" whispered Des from the Phantom. "Invoking controlled chaos," Amara whispered back. "Just trust me." 12 minutes later, the Zilani embassy declared an emergency religious conclave, pulled out of 5 Empire treaties, and shut down all regional data sharing, pending divine interpretation. Naya turned to Des. "She's a better bomb than you are." Now that was hurtful. The ripple spread. Empire border stations refused docking protocols from fleets claiming to be friendly. Diplomatic channels flooded with false demands and urgent corrections. The Kreti began independently investigating what they suspected was an internal sabotage campaign. In their effort to maintain rigid control, the Empire had become brittle. Humanity didn't smash it. They shook it and watched it crack. Back on the Phantom, Ilya stared at a data stream scrolling with coded reports. "They're panicking," he said. "Their central command's issuing overlapping orders. They've doubled encryption protocols and made 5 contradictory announcements in the last hour. We can't keep this up forever," Amara said softly. "They'll adapt, learn our patterns." "They won't get the chance," Naya replied, voice cold. "We're good at the heart." "The capital?" Des asked, eyes lighting up. "We take down Orthus," she confirmed. Amara swallowed. "That's suicide." "No," Naya said. "That's the end game." The capital world of Orthus wasn't built. It was imposed. A planet transformed by will and wealth into a monument to imperial precision, where everything from its weather systems to the curvature of its roads was micromanaged by central protocol. Now, it was a symphony of confusion. Starships orbited in holding patterns, awaiting contradictory clearances. Security checkpoints had defaulted to diplomatic lockdown after conflicting orders arrived from 6 different branches of command. And in the sky, giant view screens flickered between emergency notices, static, and, once, jarringly, an old Earth meme of a cat playing the keyboard. The HFY had done its work. The Phantom coasted through a gap in orbital defenses, like a ghost through a broken lock. Inside, the team prepped in silence. Des finally broke it, tightening a mag strap on his vest. "So, what's the actual plan once we're inside the most paranoid military complex in the galaxy?" Naya zipped up her jacket. "We killed the signal." Amara blinked. "The master relay?" "The core directive beacon. Ilya clarified, pulling up a hollow diagram of Ortha's command center. It's buried inside the Imperial Spire, built as a failsafe. If they lose network communication, the beacon assumes control and restores order. One-way signal. Pure hardware. Almost analog. Unhackable, Amara said. Unnecessary, Naya replied. We don't hack it. We detonate it. Des grinned. Now that sounds like a plan. The Phantom landed inside a construction hangar under cover of an unscheduled maintenance request that Ilya embedded in the Imperial Logistics Q hours earlier. A perfect forgery, one line buried in thousands of desperate communications. Security bots scanned their ship and politely asked for credentials they themselves no longer trusted, then let them pass. They walked the underbelly of Ortha's disguised as technicians, carrying tool cases full of explosives, jammers, and one extremely irritable protein snacking wildcard. Des leaned close to Amara as they passed another checkpoint. So, tell me you figured out your whole Zalani prophecy stunt wasn't luck. Everything's luck, she whispered back. The trick is pretending it's design. They reached the base of the Imperial Spire, a tower of seamless obsidian alloy that stabbed the sky like a needle into the stars. Above them, the core directive beacon pulsed a dull amber, sending synchronization signals to the disjointed remains of the Empire's fleet, a signal that had to be stopped. The team split up inside the tower. Ilya and Des moved toward the generator vault to plant the core disruptor. Naya and Amara took the vertical tram to the relay node itself. Feels wrong, Amara said, watching the capital city roll by beneath them, like we're winning too easily. We're not winning yet, Naya replied. The elevator dinged open. 2 guards stood at the platform mid-conversation. Neither reacted in time. Naya struck the first with a precision jab to the throat. Amara kneed the second and zapped him with a shock prod she'd hidden in her belt. They dragged the bodies into a janitor's closet and kept moving. In the generator vault, Des was humming a war song he'd made up on the way over. It had no words and way too much percussion. Ilya tolerated it only because Des was good with his hands and better with explosives. We breached the core conduit here, Ilya said, kneeling beside a junction. Once the charge is set, we trigger from top level. Needs manual sync, like flipping both switches at once. Exactly. Des gave him a look. So we're going full action movie? I am Russian engineer. We invented action movies. They planted the core. It was small, humble, even, but wired properly. It would melt the logic pathways of the beacon's output channel and send a cascade of interference waves powerful enough to collapse command-level synchronization across the Empire. Up top, Naya and Amara found the central relay chamber abandoned, almost reverently so, as if the Empire trusted the beacon too deeply to need guarding. It was elegant. No screens, no noise. Just a single black console emitting a steady pulse. A heartbeat to control. Naya stepped forward. Ilya, Des status? Charge is primed, Ilya replied. On your mark, Captain, Des added. Naya looked at Amara. You sure? She asked. Amara didn't hesitate. He died 20 minutes before they even knew it was over. Let's make it official. Naya tapped her comm. Execute. In the vault, Des and Ilya triggered the disruptor. On the spire's peak, Naya yanked the console's override node free and jammed in a homemade synchronizer coded to mimic the beacon's own patterns. The results were immediate. The pulse changed pitch, slowed, then fractured. Across the stars, Imperial ships froze mid-maneuver. Command stopped mid-transmission. Subsystems blinked into standby, then failed entirely. For a full 3 minutes, the Empire forgot how to think. The relay chamber lit up with alarms. Drones activated. Sirens screamed. They noticed, Amara said. Naya grinned. They're late. Outside, the Phantom's engines roared to life. Ilya was already in the pilot's seat. Des ran up the ramp behind him, half laughing, half coughing from smoke. Everything's fine. Slight fire. Very manageable. Extraction in 90 seconds. Naya called over comms, dragging Amara behind her. As they sprinted through the halls, the walls flickered with failing light. Authority broke down in real time. Officers shouted over dead comms. Doors opened to nowhere. Naya and Amara burst onto the hangar deck just as the Phantom hovered in. They dove in. The hatch sealed. Ilya punched it. Behind them, the Imperial spire sparked, coughed smoke, and collapsed inward, buckling like a felled monolith. Back in orbit, Naya sat in the Phantom's command chair, watching the tremors ripple outward. They'll blame internal sabotage, political rivals, systemic failure. They'll never see us, Amara said, softly. That's the point. Des leaned on the doorframe, eating again. So, what now? They're not totally dead, just confused and broken. They're decentralized, Ilya said, which means they'll splinter. And Reyes? Amara asked. Naya looked out at the stars. He told them it was a countdown. We were just the last second. Silence is louder in the aftermath, especially when the Empire goes quiet. The Phantom drifted the edge of the Silex Nebula, surrounded by dying stars and distant static. The crew sat in the briefing room. No alarms, no immediate threats, just the weight of mission completed and the 1,000-yard stare that comes after. Ilya rotated a hologram of Orthus, now offline in every major system. They've lost 87% of top-down command. Every colony governor is acting independently. Half the outer systems have declared neutrality. Amara tilted her head. Is it weird I thought it would feel noisier? Like we'd hear the collapse. It's happening, Naya said. It just doesn't scream. Empires don't die in fire. They die in questions no one can answer. Des leaned back, chair creaking. So, we won. What now? Steal a moon? Retire as heroes. Ilya answered, flat and clear. We can't go home. They all knew it, of course. The Phantom's registry had been burned months ago. Earth's official channels had disavowed them. Even if the war had turned, they were ghosts now. But Naya still said aloud, no, we don't go home. We make home. They jumped to Nisari 3, a terraforming project abandoned by the Empire after budget cuts and civil unrest. It was raw and wild, with atmosphere scrubbers half buried in soil and alien flora pushing through concrete landing pads. But it had potential. Naya stepped off the ramp and inhaled. Smells like damp and defiance. Like Dez's socks, Ilya muttered. Dez grinned. I'll take that as a compliment. Over the following weeks, they transformed the outpost into something that looked suspiciously like a community. They patched power grids, rewired water reclamators, built comms rigs not to broadcast control, but to listen, to lost colonies, wayward ships, refugees who'd spent years under Imperial boot prints with nowhere to go. And they came, not in droves, but steadily. One freighter, then 3, a family of Eurasians, a rebel medtech, a Krethi musician who claimed he'd defected for the silence alone. The signal spread. Come. No empire here. Just survivors. One night, Amara sat on a rooftop, staring at a makeshift transmitter dish. It pulsed quietly, not a call to arms, but a kind of heartbeat. Naya joined her, 2 mugs in hand. Hot enough to pretend it's coffee. Amara accepted it. Do you ever think about him? Reyes. Naya didn't answer right away. Then, every day, they sat in silence, stars sweeping overhead. He knew he'd die, Amara finally said, but he smiled. He laughed. What was that? Naya set her mug down. The Empire thought pain breaks people. But humans, we laugh at it. Not because it's funny. Because it isn't. That's how we take it back. She looked at Amara. That's why they lost. Not the virus. Not the bombs. They couldn't compute joy and defiance. A month later, a rogue Imperial corvette landed at the edge of the colony. Its captain, a tall woman with silver eyes and a scar across her jaw, stepped out unarmed. I have no empire to report to, she said, but I have ships who listen. Tell me what to do. Naya extended a hand. Help people. That's how we win. More came. A scientist who once built surveillance tech, now designing irrigation. A former weapons officer who turned his targeting code into navigation software for freight haulers. Every one of them carried trauma, but also knowledge, adaptability, fire. In time, the Phantom was no longer the last echo of rebellion. It was the beginning of a network, a kind of slow-burn revolution based on collaboration, resource sharing, and a quiet understanding that the old systems were gone, not destroyed by war, outgrown by something smarter. Des built a bar. It was half underground, because surface temperatures still spiked in the afternoons, and half laced with solar sheeting to power the neon sign above the door. Rhea's last laugh. He insisted it wasn't sentimental. The others let him pretend. One night, Ilya found a box, old Earth tech, scavenged from a merchant's haul. Inside, a working audio player. Cassette style. He rigged it to the comm tower. That night, and every night after, the colony's signal pulsed with two things: a handshake protocol for refugees, and the faint sound of blues guitar. A decade later, a historian asked Naya what had really caused the Empire to fall. She'd smiled, weathered now but sharp as ever. They executed one man to prove control. He smiled, because he knew what we were already doing. The next 20 minutes, she leaned forward, lowering her voice like she was telling a joke. That was just us improvising.